Hi guys, welcome to Westmonster Uncensored. I'm Michael Heaver.
I'm Patrick Christies.
And it's great to be back. We've had a little bit of a pause over Easter. I hope you guys all had an enjoyable break. Do let us know what you got up to. But so much to get through today, guys. You would have seen everything that's going on, whether to do with Brexit, whether to do with what's going on in London, and that's really where we're going to start today. As ever, dive in, let us know what you think, but there is nowhere else we can start other than the bloodbath, the continuing tragedy we're seeing unfold on the streets of our capital. Those of you that watch Uncensored regularly will know that we at Westmonster have been doing this for a long time now. We've been plugging away, we've been trying to highlight this dramatic surge in violence that's seen so many young people injured and killed. We've been doing our best to highlight it, and finally it seems as if there's been sort of a national response in the media. Finally this has hit the headlines, but sadly it's happened again because we've seen more young people lose their lives.
Absolutely. Well, look, guys, as Michael's just said, for a long time here, we've been trying to highlight at Westmonster and really hammer home the sickening, the shocking scale of knife and gun crime, not just on the capital streets, but really right across the country. And it is nice to see now the mainstream media appear to have caught up. It is now leading the news agenda because, unfortunately, until it does lead the news agenda and it ramps up the pressure on these politicians, then unfortunately nothing seems to get done. So we're going to be delving into the actual specifics of what's been going on for you. We're also going to be looking at the political pressure that is mounting on people like Sadiq Khan and the political class as a whole. We're also going to be looking at what reforms we think that maybe should take place with regards to the justice system, what reforms you would like to see take place in the justice system to try and drive this forward and stop this happening. So as ever, pile in. Now, we've just had a quick comment here saying, can we have something positive to dwell on as well? Now, do not worry. We have got plenty of positivity lined up. Unfortunately, it comes after what is quite a serious issue, but we do have a lot of positive Brexit stories for you and such, so make sure you stay tuned for that.
Yes, guys, we do like to leave you with a smile on your face, and we're asking you today, what do you think needs to be done about violence on the streets of London? Because unless you've been living under a rock, you've probably seen absolutely appalling incidents in London. We covered this obviously on Westmonster.
Yeah.
We're talking, bring the story up there. We're talking about a 17-year-old girl, sadly, shot dead. On the same night, a 16-year-old found shot.
Yeah.
He's now sadly died as well, and a 15-year-old stabbed. I mean, it's beyond the pale, guys. It's something we've been talking about a long time. It's just happening every day now, isn't it? And you've got to imagine, you've got to think, the age of these people, the environment that they're growing up in, that their peers, that their family, that their friends are growing up in. When you've got teenagers being shot, you've got teenagers being stabbed. We know that gun crime, the London Assembly found that gun crime is up 44% since 2014. I think knife crime's up around 23% year on year. This is a crisis. This is a national emergency. And I want to illustrate that right now, not by just throwing some stats out there. I want to go through each individual story quickly, guys, just the headlines of stories that we have done.
Hammer it home.
To hammer it home about stories we've done at Westmonster on violence in London, and this is just since New Year's Eve. So we're going to bring up some of the tweets here. And remember, guys, this is just since New Year's Eve. 4 young men stabbed to death within hours during New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. A teenager in January was stabbed in Barking Town Centre. On January the 22nd, we reported a man shot in the head in Newham. January the 18th, a 20-year-old shot in Stratford. February the 15th, a 17-year-old stabbed to death in Canning Town in East London. February the 20th, man stabbed to death in broad daylight in Southall. March the 17th, man shot and stabbed to death in Enfield. March 20th, 2 more men stabbed to death, 2 others injured. March the 21st, man stabbed to death in Stratford Shopping Centre. March the 26th, man shot dead in Hackney. And I believe there's been another, there was another stabbing a few days ago that we also covered in Bow, in East London. A 16-year-old believed stabbed in critical condition in hospital. There you can see, guys, we've been covering this. And I do that just because I think it's too easy. Yeah. I think it's a bit of a cop-out when you hear, when you just hear people say, oh, well, there's been 10 attacks or 20 attacks. Think about the systematic pattern of extreme violence and killings and murder on teenagers, on young men. It's absolutely horrific. And this is reality for people growing up today in our capital city. This is their reality. This is their community. This is their surroundings. This is the danger they grow up surrounded by. We are failing them so badly.
Well, this is it. And I mean, it was capped off, really. I think it was yesterday, maybe the day before, that news broke that London was now apparently more dangerous than New York. There have been more murders or violent attacks than New York City. New York City, a city where I believe guns are legal, certainly in a country where, the guns are extremely prevalent. in America. And London appears to be now topping that list, topping the violent crime in New York City, which I think for a lot of people would be the kind of final nail in the coffin. I think that's the limit, isn't it, really, when that happens? That's when you know for a fact that it's gone too far. But I just want to take some of your comments quickly now,
comments
guys.
coming in, guys.
A lot of people, I mean, literally, there's these comments are kind of thick and fast here, just saying that Sadiq Khan must go. Leah saying that he's untrustworthy. Khan needs to be sacked. That's from Richard McDonald. Get rid of Khan is from Michelle Hoyland. And
Khan should resign today, says Dilwich on YouTube.
Yeah, so hello to our YouTube viewers as well, of course.
Hello from Denmark. We've got someone from
Yeah,
Denmark.
we've also had a hello from Bermuda. Don't forget to tell us where you are viewing from. We also had a cheeky little hello from Manchester, my hometown. Got to give you a shout out there. But on the issue of the political class now finally being held responsible, or certainly being forced to do some action, we did see, of course, Nigel Farage's the story we did on Westmonster. He's come out and basically told Sadiq Khan that, look, you know, instead of having a pop at Donald Trump and sticking your oar into a lot of these issues, maybe it's time that you got your own house in order. And I think that is something that's important, because if you really think about it, guys, you know, over the last however many months, I've personally seen Sadiq Khan wade in on issues such as green spaces around the Capitol, about transgender toilets, about Donald Trump, about mean tweets. But why hasn't he been really sticking the oar in and getting to grips with the surge of violent crime? And you know, unless he does, this is only going to keep getting worse. You talk about things at the minute like a postcode war and about these kind of tit-for-tat violence that's escalating across the capital. Well, that literally is only going to get worse unless you get in and tackle it now. And we know that because we've seen what happened in Brixton, for example, in the 70s or the 80s. We've seen what happened in Chicago that's still going on today. If you let this get out of hand, there is only one way that ends, and that's very badly.
We've got Paul Harry Macy on Twitter. Thanks for your comment, saying Sadiq Khan too busy taking selfies and whinging about hurty tweets. I certainly think there's a level of anger growing, and it's palpable actually on social media, and you see it in reports of no action being taken, and of our, as a society, as a political system, our priorities all being wrong. As Nigel Farage said, and again, guys, you can go and see all of this on westmonster.com. Do go and visit the website. Basically saying, you know, you've got time to talk about tweets, you've got time to talk about things like Donald Trump and slag him off, and we have got this crisis where young people are being murdered on our streets. This should be, and I've been saying it for a while now, and Raheem Kassam credited us earlier, we have been talking about this at Westmonster, guys, pretty much before anyone else in terms of what is going on. We were doing this last year. The amount of people, the amount of stories we did last year, never mind, and the ones I talked about earlier were just this year, just since New Year's Eve. This is a national emergency. Why we haven't seen a major deployment of police officers on the streets, I don't know. I'm presuming it's because we don't actually have enough. And I think that is true. We've seen police numbers cut.
Well, the funding's been cut as well, you know.
But it's getting to the stage, guys, of something has to happen here, because we cannot keep on going down this path. This is in danger of totally spiralling out of control. We're in danger of seeing a complete breakdown in law and order. If we start seeing weekly killings, gangland style, of teenagers in London, I mean, that is completely unacceptable. That cannot be allowed to happen. And the government and Sadiq Khan, and I don't really care who, need to get their act together to get police on the streets. And we're going to talk a bit about our solutions, because we have some, and start getting tough. Stop tiptoeing around and start sending a message out to criminals that if you leave a house with a knife, if you leave a house with a gun, we are going to stop and search you. And if you have got anything on you, you're going to prison for years. First time, you're out, you're gone. You're going to pay for this, because we cannot allow this escalation of violence to continue.
Well, we do want you, because we are going to come on to what we think maybe should be done about it and what you guys think should be done about it. So please do maybe start commenting now, so we've got a bit of a build-up there for a couple of minutes' time, just about what you would like to see, maybe changes to the justice system, maybe changes to police activity, etc., that can help to maybe curb this issue. But I've got a point here about politicians. And it's at times like these when you do learn a lot about what type of politicians they are, what kind of human being they are. And Sadiq Khan seems very comfortable to sit back and basically say nothing or do very little, it would seem, about the relentless slaughter of young boys and girls in the capital. He's very happy to blame Tory cuts, and he's not wrong. The Met has been cut by £430 million. Around half of London's police stations are set to close, and we do have a Tory government. So, you know, he's not wrong in that respect. But actually, by sitting on his hands and playing party politics for political advantage, what he's proving there is that he actually clearly, it would seem, doesn't really care about the actual reality of the loss of life and the actual human impact of it. And that is where you lose the right as a politician when you do that, to claim that you go into politics for the people, that you go into politics to benefit the people. You very obviously there now have become a career politician, and the worst kind of career politician at that. And I think really Sadiq Khan, in my mind, has shown his true colours here, and that would seem to chime with a lot of what you guys are saying as well.
We'll go to a few more comments, but as ever, guys, if you're enjoying Uncensored today, give us a retweet, give us a like, and if you can, please do support us at westmonster.com/support. So many of you have stumped up some money, whether as a single donation or monthly, to help us grow and help us grow, and we're really thankful. If you go and head over after the show to westmonster.com/support, think about it, guys. Chuck in a few quid every month. It would really help us grow. It would really help us to keep highlighting the important issues in this country. Now, before we go to some comments, I just want to bring in a story we did, and this was basically about an ex-Scotland Yard cop, and he laid it out. His name, Peter Blexley. He basically said, more cops equals less crime. The fear of bumping into a cop no longer exists. Why not take a weapon onto the streets? And I think that's exactly right. And I think one of the big problems we've got in this country at the moment is that no one is banging the drum to say you cannot do law and order on the cheap. You have to have a heavy police presence in some of these areas now. We've talked about earlier, some of these areas, it's happening time and time again. We've talked about knife attacks, gun attacks, even acid attacks we've seen. You have to go down, you have to crank down, you have to get police on the streets, visible, and they have to be able to stop and search.
Yeah.
They have to be able to provide a visible presence that deters criminals.
But I want your guys' opinion on this. Just taking one comment here from John Bryan's just saying he's locked in from Scotland, guys. He loves the show. John, absolute pleasure to have you on board, as always. And Moji Miles High from the middle of nowhere in East Anglia. I'm not sure what the rampant knife and gun problem is like in the middle of nowhere in East Anglia, but appreciate you locked in to listen to us talk about the one here. I want to know what your opinions are on stop and search, guys, because this apparently has been a very divisive issue. Now, I must admit, I didn't realise it was as divisive as it is. I am of the opinion that as long as I'm not carrying a knife or a gun, or drugs or whatever it is, I wouldn't really mind getting stopped and searched, for me personally, in the interest of wider public safety. That's not something I might be mildly inconvenienced by at the time, but I don't think I'd really care. Would you care? Would you really mind about this issue of being stopped and searched? Would you mind if it was really rolled out in force? Because I think that is clearly a good way of cutting down on the number of people carrying knives. If you know that when you leave a house, if you are in possession of something you shouldn't be in, there is a chance at least that you could be caught with it. Well, at the minute you can't be, can you?
I've seen a few lefties try and play this down and say, oh, well, it's not as bad as New York and stop and search isn't really a factor. Well, you look at the statistics, 44% increase in gun crime since 2014 in London, 23% year on year knife crime. And Sadiq Khan, to be fair, he went into office as one of the, and by the way, Theresa May was also anti-stop and search. She tried to lessen the use of it. Sadiq Khan went into office saying, I pledge basically to cut stop and search further. He's found, and I've said this time and time again, he's found in office, he's been mugged by reality, and he's now pledged a significant increase. And what does that show you? It shows you that going out on the campaign trail with this airy-fairy crap of tiptoeing around, and we won't have heavy-handed police and all the rest of it, it costs lives. It costs lives. This isn't a game.
Yeah, the reaction speaks for itself here. Leonard Augustine, stop and search is a necessity. So stop and search is a must. Steve Baker, well said. I wouldn't mind as I've got nothing to hide. Sandra Blackmore Wood, if you have nothing to fear, then why worry about being stopped and searched? Literally in the last 10 seconds, we've just had about 20 comments from that. And that, I think, must be quite a commonly held view then, isn't it? Is there anything wrong with stop and search if you really haven't got anything to hide? So why has there been this massive, massive push away from it? And when you look at the reality of the situation at the minute with the spiralling knife and gun crime, doesn't it make sense to have a big push back in favour of stop and search? Would that not have an impact maybe in cutting down crime? So
what is the government going to be doing about this, guys? Well, again, you can go and see this story on westmonster.com, guys. Go and check it out. And by the way, you'll see on all of our stories, we'll just bring it up for you in a sec.
Yeah.
You'll see on all of our stories there, the red alert email. Make sure you get signed up so you get our latest stories in your inbox. You don't want to miss out on anything there. And also the support box, guys. If you do support what we're doing, please do chuck a few quid in. Help us grow. Help us keep telling the truth. And of course, give us a like and a retweet. But this story really angered me because this is basically about the Home Office's plan for their new so-called serious violent crime strategy. And if this is the government's idea of clamping down, then we're in big trouble because apparently it's going to include measures, including a 2 strikes policy, where if somebody is caught with a corrosive substance, i.e. acid, twice, then they get an immediate minimal 6 months prison sentence. Now let's say, because I've heard some different things on this, let's say that in reality it wouldn't be 6 months, let's say it would be 12 months.
Well, still not.
Frankly, you're sending a terrible message out to young people.
Yeah.
What you're saying is, you can go out with acid and get caught once, and you're almost guaranteed to escape a custodial sentence. That is a terrible message, guys. And we have to start taking this a lot more seriously. I would say this, and let me know what you think about this proposal. I would say you would put a deadline maybe on the 1st of May or the 1st of June or whatever, as soon as possible, really. And you'd say, we're going to be doing stop and search in areas where there's been a lot of attacks recently, a lot of violence. And if you're caught with a knife, or if you're caught with a gun, or if you're caught with acid, or if you're caught with any sort of weapon, we will assume that you're intending to use it. We will assume that you're intending to maim someone or kill them. And you will get 2 to 3 years in prison, no questions asked, mandatory, no early release, that's it. I think that is a concrete step that you would instantly see less people taking weapons out. That's the type of stuff it needs. All this crap about 2 strikes and you get 6 months is a load of hogwash. It's complete weakness, and I don't think it's going to have any effect whatsoever.
Well, and I tell you what, Michael, people do seem to agree with you. Barbara Berry saying no second chances. Mandy Carter saying the stupidity of it, the victims suffer for life. And this is the point now. This is the one point that I have that I think is quite important, especially when you're looking at the increased level of people carrying acid, which is unfortunately now a thing, isn't it? Loads of people are doing.
I mean, what's the justification for carrying acid?
Yeah, so what's your excuse?
You're carrying it with the intention of potentially
don't
scarring someone for life. You're a scumbag. You're a wrong-un.
And
if you're carrying it, you should be punished.
But that's the point. If you go out with a knife or with acid, let's even just leave guns out of it for the minute. Let's just say on those 2 things. What can be your realistic possible excuse for having them? You're obviously intending to use them. I would argue, therefore, that it's possible for you to be tried for conspiracy to murder, for example, certainly conspiracy to GBH or seriously assault. And if you do throw acid over somebody's face, they have to suffer with the consequences of that for life. And as we've all seen, very distressing cases of it, it's probably one of the worst things I can imagine happening to you. They've got a life sentence. But then realistically, someone would have to get caught twice with it to maybe get sent away for 6 months, which would probably be out in 3. That's just mental, isn't it?
It's pathetic. An interesting comment here. Thank you very much for this comment. A retired roadman on Twitter saying, what if the weapon is for self-defence? Some people feel they need to be protected, but violence isn't the answer. You can't get nicked for suspicious reasons unless it's proof you can. My point is, you can't constantly as a society be playing on the defensive. You have to actually at some point get on the front foot. You have to actually at some point send out a message that no, you don't need to carry a weapon with you, because the few scumbags that are hardcore, we're going to get them, we're going to lock them up, and we're going to lock them up for a very long time. And I agree. I think the culture at the moment, I think there's a mixture, but I think young people increasingly feel like when they're growing up in these areas and you're seeing teenagers, we did a story the other day, a 14-year-old lad shot in Seven Sisters. When you're seeing people that young around you being killed, I'm sure you do think I need to protect myself, but I think you reassure people by coming down hard, by having police on the streets, and by putting in place strong mandatory sentences that assure people that those scumbags that do go about doing this, we're going to find them, we're going to punish them severely, we're going to make an example of them, and we're going to protect you. That's the message we have to send out, and I don't think it is being sent out.
No, it's not. And I mean, I think, look, we have wandered into a situation where knife and gun crime is, and these are just the facts, that are in a position where they've been worse than they have been almost since records began. It's going to absolutely epidemic levels, and so what's the response here now? If we just carry on going the way we are going with police cuts and fewer police and fewer resources, well, the problem's not just going to magically get better, is it? And I do think that there needs to be a sensible discussion had now, realistically, on, unfortunately, we are in a situation where it does look like stop and search is quite necessary, and judging by your comments on that, you guys would seem to be behind it, where longer prison sentences need to be dished out, and there simply needs to be more police and more of a police presence. And I think that's not maybe too much to ask, and I think the government has to be responsible to look at the situation and have a look at it and act accordingly. But what do you guys think? Let us know. Bring the army in for tougher punishments, Karen Campbell said, a bit extreme there. Courtney Robinson's to float with the idea of capital punishment being the ultimate deterrent there. Obviously, I would imagine that would be for the more serious end of the crimes. And Leslie White...
Anthony,
go on, you go.
Anthony, thanks for your comment, Anthony, on Facebook, saying... that we basically need no ifs or buts. People need to be put in prison, punished.
Yeah, build more prisons was another one, and that ties into.
But this is one of the problems with the system, isn't it, guys? I think this is why we're seeing this culture breakdown of increasing lawlessness in London. Is because when is the last time you saw a politician? And I can always say this, but when is the last time you saw a politician or a minister in this country stand up and say we need more prisons, we need tougher sentences, we need to stop this culture whereby people are filming themselves taking the piss in prison, laughing around with their mates like it's some sort of holiday.
Yeah,
that you regularly see, you know, smuggling drugs in, smuggling McDonald's in, having a whale of a time of TV on in the background.
Yeah.
That is not a deterrent. If anything, it acts as a criminal networking facility whereby people can actually come out more criminalised than when they went in.
Yeah.
So, you know, we've got major problems with our law and order system in this country. But you can count on Westmonster. We're going to keep pushing this, guys, because I think it's absolutely... you know, we covered this... We've been covering this a long time now.
Yeah.
And it cannot be allowed to continue.
And just a little bit of a heads up, it does look like we've got something decent lined up for you Friday as well. It's
1 o'clock.
It's as confirmed as it can be at the moment. But yes, at 1 o'clock we have got a specialist activist who has done a lot of work to try and prevent knife crime and spread awareness. And he is coming into the studio for a special version of Uncensored as things stand at 1 o'clock on Friday. And for people that sometimes say, well, maybe a bit London-centric with the knife crime thing here, he very much does have a national picture, so that could be a really, really good one for you guys. There, I just think I'm just going to finish on from me personally on the knife crime thing. If actually, what are politicians afraid of from actually doing something? Because if you did stand up and say something, some of the things that you guys have said in our comments so far about tougher sentences, more police funding, you know, things like that. Well, wouldn't that actually presumably go down quite well? I don't know a lot of people that would be against that. I think it passes the pub test, as I call it. If you go into any pub and speak to people that are around the bar, that is the type of thing that most people would wholeheartedly agree with. So I really don't understand why we're not really getting to grips with that and doing that a bit more. But that's my 2 pennies worth on violent crime anyway.
Yeah, at the end of the day, guys, you've got to have a society and you've got to have a country whereby you can raise children safely. And at the moment, I'm afraid in London, when you're seeing teenagers like that girl and like other boys and girls in London, you're seeing them get shot, you're seeing them get stabbed. I'm afraid that we're failing badly. But Westmonster's going to keep on this, guys, because it cannot be allowed to continue. Sadly, there seems to have been a lack of action on this so far. So we'll see what happens. But as ever, we'll bring you the latest.
John Bryan, so you guys have been covering this for months now and still in action from the government. Thank you for noticing, but we will keep fighting the good fight. But look, I think we are going to move away from knife crime and onto a topic that I'm sure will get you guys a bit hot under the collar or commenting or intrigued, whatever it is. We're talking about the gender pay gap.
Yeah, so the companies with more, I think it's with more than 250 employees by midnight tonight have to publish the gender pay gap.
Yeah,
and it goes into and you can see we did a story about Michelle Dewberry, who I think is an absolute superstar. I think she was on The Apprentice.
Yeah, she's good.
Commentator, she's a businesswoman, fantastic lady. You know, she really laid down a marker, guys, because to me it plays into all this. You know, it's the gender race politics bollocks where people get sort of separated and you're just classified as some brick in some sort of ethnic or gender wall. You're not an individual. You're part of some sort of collective. You're part of some sort of block. And that's how you're treated. And I think Michelle Dewberry really summed up this morning. So I want you to watch this clip and let us know what you think about it.
Yeah,
so I think it's fantastic.
It's not fair, for example, that companies like Ryanair, you know, you just said yourself, you know, I wouldn't work for a company that's got this gender pay gap. So companies will now be looked at poorly based on something that's irrelevant. So, for example, if we truly have a problem that women are not choosing to be pilots, and I'm sticking with the pilot example,
yes, okay.
What we ought to do is go right back to basics education. I work with a group of schools, UTCs, aimed at 14 to 19-year-old kids. We bring employers into the curriculum. We work really, really hard to ensure that children, men, you know, boys and girls are looking at different careers and involving employers. So what we do is we raise aspirations of girls, and these conversations that we're having where we're telling girls you will be discriminated against in this company, in this sector, it's harmful to them.
But what, so hang on, so you left school at 15.
Yeah.
Just one thing, you left school at 15.
Yeah.
By the time you were 22, you were earning a 6-figure salary.
I was.
So you didn't wait to be asked.
No, so here's the thing. So, right, at the end, and I feel so strongly about this, my message to girls, you can have and do and be anything that you want. And yes, you're absolutely right, Harriet. There is fewer women at the top senior positions. A lot of that is to do with historically,
Please
for example.
don't say children. Please don't say it's to do with children.
Well, hang on, no. What I'm going to say
It might be to do with children, though, because if you can't afford childcare and one
Absolutely.
person is taking the brunt of the
If
work,
you can't
then
afford
it might...
childcare because you're being paid unequally and you're being paid less because
You're
you're
not
a
being
woman
paid
and your
unequally,
husband is
Harriet.
being paid more because they're a man, yes, then you do have to make that decision. That's not a choice. That's something you're being forced
Men
into
and women
through
are not being
economics.
paid unequally. If they were, it would be illegal. They're not.
They are actually.
They're
So when
not.
you look at a lot of the companies that are taking this pay gap reporting seriously, what they're doing is going beyond what's required and actually looking at the
Yes.
equal
So
roles.
just in a,
and there are gaps
in
there.
a point.
Of course, she nailed it, I thought. Michelle Dewberry there on ITV's Good Morning Britain. And as she said it, men and women are not being paid unequally. If they were, it would be illegal. They're not. And she actually says that it's actively harmful. These conversations we're having when we're telling girls you'll be discriminated against in this company, in this sector, it's harmful to them. She believes, as I do, that you should encourage children to be aspirational, to do what makes them happy, to not close anything off and go for it. But a very weird sort of situation you have now where you have people like Michelle Dewberry just pointing out basic facts, which is it's actually illegal to pay men and women or discriminate on the basis of gender already. So what do you think, guys? Let us know.
Well, that is it. And I'm especially keen to hear from some of our Westmonster women here on this particular issue. Do you feel like you're being discriminated against pay-wise? Do you feel like this was a historic issue that has now been solved? Do you feel like it's still ongoing? Let us know. We have had a few comments coming in. Richard McDonald saying the PC crew are out of control. Jason Riches saying, how about the North-South pay divide? And yeah, there's been quite a few others. I'm more worried about the poor-rich divide, which is turning our country into a sewer. And that's from Leonard Augustine.
Well, it was interesting because just before we came on air, I think it was revealed the Conservative Party, I think it's their workers at their HQ, there's a 12.4% gender gap, if you want to call it that, of on average, women earning more. Well, that's not sexist, is it? It just means the only way that you could say it was sexist is if everyone was doing the same job, and to being paid, doing the same job, they were being paid different amounts of money. Now, I assume at CCHQ, you've just got women and men in different jobs, and it just happens to be that the best person for the job, some of the higher paid jobs was women, and it works out that on average, women earn more. Well, so what? It's not sexist against men, is it? That's just the configuration of the company, of the organisation, and the rates they've chosen to pay individuals. I mean, and we have to treat this as individuals, surely, don't we?
There's been a few very, very, just really bizarre examples that have come out in the press. Someone highlighting, I think, the football industry was one of the worst industries for the gender pay gap. Well, but yeah, because how do you think that doesn't work? I mean, you've got someone like Lionel Messi or Cristiano Ronaldo, two of the, arguably some of the most famous people in the world, certainly the best players in what is an extremely high-paid industry, on about £650,000 a week. And then you're looking at the gender pay gap within a football club who might have a selection of catering staff that are women, or even say physio staff that are women, this, that and the other. Well, they're going to be on just literally hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pounds a week less than the likes of Ronaldo and Messi, just because that's just the way the world works. That's just the nature of that industry. It would be weird if they were on hundreds of thousands of pounds, wouldn't it, for being a physio? I find this a bit odd. If there are cases of a woman being paid less for doing the same job as a man, that is wholeheartedly wrong. I find that absolutely disgusting. But
it is illegal.
But I think we need, well, it is literally illegal. Yeah. So
employees can't do it.
But I do think there's a little bit of a push at the minute for people to be starting saying, women are being paid less for this and that, and actually they are just doing different jobs sometimes. I'm not sure.
Look, some very interesting comments flowing in now, guys. We're going to move the topic on in a second. Anderson Stevens saying, women at work getting paid more than me. Shut the fuck up. Okay. I mean, you're obviously one case study there. But look, we got to stop. We got to stop as a society, I think, guys. And there's a danger that here we start seeing everything through racial or gender. We got to treat people as individuals. Because that's what we all are. We have individual traits, we have individual ambitions, we have individual skill sets, we have individual mentality. We are individuals. We are not white man, young, old, black, woman. That's not the way we should be viewing the world. You should be viewing the world and treat people as individuals. That's what I think is a fair approach to life and to society, and that's what's going to get you on in life. I fear that we're going down this road now of everyone being put in some sort of group, and that's the group you belong to, and this is my group, and that's your... It's not the way to go about things at all.
Yeah, and Shannon Johnson's got in touch. Thank you very much for this comment, Shannon, saying absolutely not. When I was in the army, I was paid exactly the same as my male counterparts. If a woman does the same job, then absolutely she should get the same amount. If not, then pay should reflect that. And I think that's a great comment, brilliant comment. And I think one of the things that I would raise, and this is I think Michael touched on it before, there are some industries where women are just paid significantly more than men, like the modelling industry, for example, seems to be a good one to highlight there. That's not sexist. I don't feel that that's sexist. I don't feel as a man that I'm being discriminated against there on the grounds of my gender. I think you have to maybe accept the, whatever your job is in that industry at the time. I think there's a bit too too much of a thing to jump on and say, things are being overtly done because of sexism, perhaps. But you tell me what you think, guys, anyway.
And there's loads of other examples, but, just to finish on this, Northern Ireland, women on average in Northern Ireland full-time work are paid more than men. Doesn't mean it's sexist against men, does it? It just means that those individuals who happen to be women have got jobs on average
Absolutely.
more than men. So
Cracking comment here from John Bryan saying, you guys are an equal pay. No, we're not, John, and that is sexism in the workplace. So.
Right, moving swiftly on now. Right, government could pitch tens of thousands net migration target to secure EU deal. This is a warning from a cabinet minister who told The Sun, if you look at the members of the Strategy and Negotiations Committee, they're all entrenched on their various positions about our red lines, except for immigration. That is the one area they'll all happily trade away, apart from her, because, referring to Theresa May, because Rudd, Hammond, Boris and Gove are all pro-migration. It'll be very interesting, guys, to see what happens with migration in terms of the Brexit, in the context of Brexit, because for me, again, and I say it time and time again, it was the cornerstone of the Leave campaign. It's what won it for Leave, and you've basically heard bugger all about it since. The government policy now is that nothing's really going to change until 2021, so we're going to have open borders. We're even actually extending full complete free movement to Croatia. So if anything, the borders are getting open even more. There's no end in sight till 2021, and hey, I mean, what's going on here? When are we going to know what sort of migration policy we're going to have, when the government are going to take back control, when they're going to reduce net migration to tens of thousands as they pledge? I think there is increasing worry from Brexiteers that this could be a potential trade away to the EU for a deal.
Well, yeah, and let us know what you think, because obviously let's assume, I imagine a lot of you did vote for Brexit. If you didn't, that's perfectly fair enough. It was your choice. But was one of the main reasons that you voted because you wanted to see more done with regards to immigration, or did you do it for maybe financial reasons, etc.? Let us know exactly what it was. But I do think for most people, or for a lot of people, that voted for Brexit, the ability to have some form of control over your immigration system was clearly at least a factor, if not the main factor, in their decisions. And to see it seemingly cast aside, or certainly just tossed to one side for the sake of getting some kind of trade deal, I think that will go down very, very badly with the electorate. It feels like a betrayal, I think.
Yeah, Kay on Facebook saying, not what we voted for, no deal, bring on the Mog. Kay, you read my mind, because guess what our next story is? It is the Mogster himself.
Moggy.
Here he is, basically criticising the Parliament's Brexit committee. It's basically we've got a Ramona majority. Before they've said that we should delay Brexit because we can't do it. Now they're pushing towards this EEA/EFTA position. But basically, guys, the whole kit and caboodle is they're still trying to water down Brexit. They're still trying to say, no. The British people didn't vote to end open borders. We can technically leave the EU but go on with freedom of movement and no one's going to care and we will have left and that respects the mandate and it's all complete garbage and they think we're stupid and it's not going to happen. And I'm afraid it shows you still in Westminster, even though public opinion's moved on so far, even though the shrinking minority of anti-Brexiteers is now so tiny, they still won't accept the result.
Julie Hassel saying the people's vote is being made a mockery of. Chris Southern saying we need to just walk away now. John saying Mog is the man to run this country. Now I must say that...
Go on Moggy, Anthony.
I think we always get a lot of love for the Mog. Can we get a big thumbs up or a happy face or whatever you can do on your computers now for the Mogster? Also guys, look, please don't forget to go and try, and if you can afford to, please part with you some hard-earned cash and give it to us so that we can still try and produce some of the best quality journalism for you. Get the Mog on the show. Do a lot of the things like, for example, I've done an investigation in Telford into child grooming, done another investigation recently into a potential breach of data by the Labour Party. All the things that you do and help support us are going directly towards that. You can pinpoint exactly where your money is going to. We really do appreciate it. Please do help us out if you can.
You know it makes sense, guys. If you can chuck us £5 or £10 a month, it's really not that much. I'm sure some of you can afford it. I'm sure some of you can't, but some of you can afford it. It's westmonster.com/support. Please do help us. Now, go into the next story. I mean, we talked about migration and borders being such an integral part of the Brexit campaign. Patrick, the mess that we're seeing with the European Union, and it's Frontex, even the EU's own border agency is saying that the whole thing is a complete catastrophe.
Yeah, so Frontex, for those of you that don't know, is the agency that is in control of securing, or well, not securing, I've probably been a bit fast and loose with the term securing there, aren't I? But doing something with the EU's external borders. And they have now come out and just basically said, look, we're not working. It's not working. The system isn't working. Now, you didn't maybe necessarily need Frontex to tell you that because you might have occasionally glanced at what Europe currently looks like over the course of the last couple of years and realised for yourself that things haven't exactly been peachy. But they have come out now and said, that basically not mass migration, but actual people smuggling gangs, human trafficking, the routes are just popping up left, right and centre, especially with regard to the West Balkans. They're popping up at a rate that they can't stop. They're getting through. They're trying loads of different things, and it just, frankly, most of the time it seems to be coming off. So really, this is a pretty dire situation for the EU when you've got this Frontex, which is very well funded, being tasked with securing the continent, and it's just holding its hands up and saying, look, we just can't cope.
Yeah, and in terms of the terror threat as well, this is Fabrice Leggeri,
Well,
who's
of course,
the head of
yeah.
Frontex. He was also mentioning, basically saying that it remains a huge risk. The terror threat remains high, and we must be certain that there are no frontiers crossing to you that are not intercepted, as this would be to the detriment of European security. And this is going, again guys, I think this is a story that sort of, you've heard a lot about the migrant crisis, it's sort of gone off the boil. The media now are sort of not talking about it that much. Consider this, Islamic State have been absolutely smashed to pieces abroad, right?
Yeah, they're going somewhere.
As you've got the head of the EU's border agency saying that we're still at risk, there's still a high terror threat, there's still smuggling gangs operating with relative impunity and able to try and bring people that we don't know who they are, haven't got a clue why they're coming here to Europe. I would suggest that is a matter of national security. I would suggest that's a major story, and I would suggest that strong borders are a matter of national security.
Yeah, the other undertone to this story was that actually they were saying that there are some gangs operating around the West Balkans region that are basically arms dealers who are managing to get their arms there through into places like the Middle East, etc. So they are directly arming, it would seem, these terrorists that are over there. Now, if the borders aren't secure, it follows what is to stop them travelling into the continent, maybe armed to the teeth with whatever. I mean, there is just a basic national security risk here, public safety risk here. But just moving slightly away from that, we've had a couple of comments. I did give a bit of a plea for donations earlier, and John Moran has just said he'll give you 10 quid, Michael, if you get rid of that tie, which I think is interesting. But then Kate
Kate's saying I like Michael's tie, so I'm sort
it
of...
depends how much you want the cash, mate, to be honest. I'd get it off now if I
I
were you.
I think you should respect me as a man of principle, right? I am not for bending, I am not for turning, I am not for jumping to the latest bit of public opinion. I am pro-tie, I'm pro-yellow, and I'm keeping it
Build
on.
the tie, Michael.
If you can't respect that, then I'm sorry, but I'm not one of these politicians who's going to melt on the bit of public. The tie stays.
Right, well, he cost us £10, so actually...
I'm sure he'll give us a tenner for the for the banter. Right, now moving on to President Trump. Again, guys, something you like to do with Westmonster, you can go and see this on our website. We like to talk about things that necessarily aren't going to be reported elsewhere, and I bet you didn't hear about this from anywhere else. Basically, Westmonster, they do polls, they do daily trackers. They, the other day, they basically confirmed that Trump's overall job approval rating is now running ahead of where Barack Obama's was at this stage of his presidency, which is quite incredible. Whenever you flick on the TV, you may have noticed the words that sort of follow the name President Trump. Divisive, unpopular, all of this crap like they were saying when he was the candidate. In reality, he's actually ahead of Barack Obama in terms of overall job approval rating from American voters, which I think is phenomenal. I mean, that is an incredible achievement. Not something you'll really hear anywhere else. Not something that fits the narrative that this is an unpopular president because they're still carrying a grudge, because they don't like the fact that he absolutely whooped their candidate, Hillary Clinton. But that's the reality. President Trump, don't buy into the hype. Look at the numbers, look at the facts. The American voters backing him in greater numbers, his job performance, than Barack Obama at the same cycle in his presidency.
Absolutely. Well, look, Sandra's got in touch saying she follows American politics. She knew this yesterday. Well, this is old news for you, apparently, Sandra, but well done for following, being a woman of the world and following the goings-on all across the globe. Fantastic. A load of your comments still flying in.
Durf on YouTube saying, I refuse to conform to wearing a tie. I mean, it's not conforming. I think it looks quite fetching sometimes.
This is
you're pro-tie, you're anti-tie, let us know.
This is interesting from Tanis, who is a regular on the show. Thank you very much, Tanis, for getting involved. Just saying that Don is doing what he said he would. And that is an interesting fact with Donald. I think it's an inescapable fact for the people that don't like him. And I can understand why, because he's quite an abrasive chap. He's a classic alpha male, isn't he? And certainly with modern times, I think that can grate on some snowflakes a little bit, perhaps. But what you can't get around is the fact that he has said he will do several things. He's made certain promises in the run-up to being elected. Basically, he said, "Look, vote for me, but I'll do these." And he has really set about doing them. And so, actually, if there was a bit more of that in politics in general, then maybe we would be a bit happier with our political class. But I want to know what you guys think. I always try and struggle to gauge.
We've got a little troll. I do like having our little trolls because it always raises a smile. We've got Mish, who's absolutely got no life at all because he's flooded the Twitter comments with all sorts of garbage. The one that really caught my eye out of all of his idiotic comments was, "They say British men are metrosexual. I see what they meant. Fashion, ladies, lol. Fashion, lol." I mean,
Right.
I mean, I've never personally been described as metrosexual. This is a sort of a new thing for me. Maybe we're just talking about you, Patrick.
Well, and I'll take
Have
that, to be
you
honest.
been using your creams and all that stuff?
I moisturise twice daily, sometimes 4 times on Sundays. I've just recently had a pedicure, and you'll be pleased to know I took my face mask off long enough to go live to you right now. So yes,
So
I'm in
Mish,
touch with
thank
my
you,
feminine side.
thank you for noticing. Thank you for noticing. Patrick's not going to forgive that one in a hurry. Right, now moving on, guys. We did promise you, just to finish, we did promise you to leave you with a smile on your face.
Yes.
And we have got some Brexit good news. There it is up on the screen. Patrick.
Yes,
start
well,
us off.
so obviously, look, post-Brexit, there was a worry, I think, wasn't there, with some people that we would end up in a situation where, if you believe Project Fear, where all the car companies, all the manufacturing companies, anyone with a business brain whatsoever was going to be like a mass exodus out of the country. We'd all be left foraging for food in the woods and goodness knows what. But Peugeot are reportedly planning to engage in a massive manufacturing push in Luton, of all places. So they have said that they are going to be making a new set of vans that belong to, I believe, Peugeot and Citroën, delivery vans, and they're going to basically be protecting, I think, 2,000 or so jobs in the area. Their chief executive had previously said that because of Brexit, they were going to look to maybe move out of Britain because of the uncertainty. They've clearly backtracked on that now. And, of course, it follows another cracking Brexit good news story, which we are going to finish with you today, which 20 consecutive months manufacturing industry in Britain has grown, which has got to be some sort of record, hasn't it? Brexit Britain is booming.
Yeah, investment in terms of just a minute ago, the Luton plant investment confirmed, thought to be worth tens of millions of pounds, increased production capacity by a third. And yes, Patrick's absolutely right. UK manufacturing grows for 20 consecutive months, 23rd month of growth in new export orders. So, you know, guys,
Great news, Dot Racing says. Absolutely right. It is great news.
you might not hear some of this stuff elsewhere, guys, because it doesn't fit the narrative of those gloony little Ramonas upset because they got an establishment. You know, they had the establishment support and they got an absolute spanking and they just can't get over it. And it's just a little bit sad now. Thankfully, we're seeing the reality.
Tracy Hill.
The sky isn't going to come in.
Absolutely.
The country's going to be fine. We're doing global trade deals. We did a story the other day, by the way, guys, important to say. I think around 21 countries now, non-EU countries, that the UK is now actively engaging in terms of a future relationship and possible trade deal. This is the future. This is the opportunity. This is the time. I can't wait.
Well, look, guys, just to rattle off a few of your comments right at the end. Tracy Hill, I buy British all the time. Fantastic. Tannis urging everyone to buy British. John saying he hopes the tie you've got on there is British made. I certainly do as well. A bit like our passport should be, hey? Project Fear strengthens our resolves. That's Julie Morn. And that's about that for that. People just say basically it's great news and it's good for Britain.
Don't tell Tony Blair, says Simon.
Absolutely.
He's probably too busy drafting another speech, and I mean that's his full-time occupation now. Write a speech about Brexit, you know, why it's going to be a disaster. Come off stage, write another one, and go and do another one. And every time it just sort of seems to increase the levels of support. So carry on, Tony. But no, we won't give him the news. I couldn't stand his face.
No, we don't want to get him on the show, unfortunately. But look, guys, it has been an absolute pleasure as always. We do hope that you had a good Easter and you're getting back into the swing of things gradually. We do have a very special show lined up for you on Friday as well.
1 o'clock Friday. Guys, if you enjoyed the show, one last time, please do go to westmonster.com/support. If you can put in a monthly amount, whatever it is, £5, £10, £20, lots of you have already. Thank you so much. But if you can, it really would help us. If you can take the time to do that, it takes about 2 minutes to do on our website, westmonster.com/support. We will see you on Friday at 1 o'clock. Have a great week and visit westmonster.com for the latest.
Take care, guys.